Commander, it's time to sleep now. Can you help me turn off the light? The light is at the light. The light is at the light button. Help me turn it off. Yeah, thank you. Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the Ukraine war for the day of 202, the 13th of September. So let's not wait any further. I got a lot of things to say, but I rather let's just start. Okay, first thing first, we have of course, as usual, there's always weird statements, and somehow I missed out certain weird statements, but I did see the response from Georgia. So according to this post by ASB military, Ukraine is telling Georgia to open a second front against the Russian forces and start to seize territory lost to Russia in 2008. So the Georgian Dream Party leader and MP and also head of the parliamentary so-called force said on Tuesday that Georgia would consider to open a second front against Russia only if its people support it via a referendum. So Irakli Kobakhidze, I probably slaughtered his name, was commenting on a statement made by some Ukrainian officials in recent months that called on Tbilisi to join its fight against Russia. So he said we can hold a referendum, whether people want to open a second front in Georgia or not. According to Kobakhidze in the Georgian news channel 1. So they say that the Georgians should make the decision themselves, whether they agree with the officials in Kiev or with their own government who decide not to get involved with a conflict with Russia. So Georgia is here. In the southern part of the western Russia, not exactly far from Ukraine, just a mere 700 kilometers away or 600 kilometers away. So anyway, Ukraine has already listed Georgia as an unfriendly country because Georgia refused to apply sanctions and to supply weapons or help to Ukraine. So Georgia and Ukraine diplomatic relationship is already rubbish now, and I believe that Ukraine might have already withdrawn their ambassador from Georgia. So I don't even know how they will expect to convince Georgia to actually go to war with Russia in a basically suicide mission, like what they always send the Ukrainian soldiers to do. Anyway, according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry report, the latest report, they reported that they have destroyed one Sukhoi 25, one Sukhoi 24M, and one Mi-8 helicopter of the Russian forces, the Russian Air Force. So this is according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry. So they shot down two attack planes and one helicopter. Again, they never say where this happened, so I cannot really map it. The Belarusian exercise probably will be ending today. So this is the last day of their military exercise near to the Ukrainian border. So I don't expect anything to happen. But of course, usually towards the last day of exercises, crazy things can happen. But I don't think so. So moving on to the southern front. So the southern front starts to get a bit busy again. So at the Mykolaiv Front, there is reports of attempted assault from Posad-Pokrovske over here towards Ternovi Pody. Towards Ternovi Pody. So previously we have kind of mapped it to suggest Ternovi Pody has been captured by the Ukrainian forces. Apparently this information is wrong, and Ternovi Pody is actually still under Russian control. So the Ukrainian forces is attempting to attack Ternovi Pody from this direction. However, their forces was detected, and then the Russian forces conducted massive shelling on these troops, which then the troops withdrawn back to their original positions after the shelling. There is reported fighting at Novohryhorivka. So this is again reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, which was also reported the same thing the day before. And this previously I also the yesterday's summary I was questioning, you know, Ternovi Pody might be under Russian control because the fighting cannot be here if this is not Russian control. So today we can confirm that Ternovi Pody is indeed Russian control, which is why there's fighting at Novohryhorivka. There is report of reinforcement reaching Zoria, and this is actually according to the pro-Russian source Ryba, they say that is to restore combat capability of the brigade and rotational of the personnel in this position, as well as a mechanized platoon has been transferred to Zoria. Perhaps this is actually to prepare for another offensive via Novohryhorivka towards Ternovi Pody. So this is the situation here at the Mykolaiv Front. There's nothing else here. Moving on to the Davydiv Brid Front. At Davydiv Brid Front, the most significant action is actually the Ukrainian offensive against Davydiv Brid. So the attack seems to have started very early in the day, and towards the end of the day was reported that the entire enemy attack has been repulsed. This information only is reported on the pro-Russian sources. It was not reported on the Ukrainian side. And there is also fighting continued at Bezimenne. This is according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry. Situation seems to be unchanged over here. There is also a reported concentration of forces at Lozove, and accordingly there was more than 50 units of military equipment has been transferred through crossings at Velike Atakove, which is actually here, at Belaya Krasnisia, which is actually here. So there is crossing one here, and there's one more crossing at Ternivka or Ternovka, which is around here. So they have been gathering the forces in the vicinity of Lozove. Perhaps it's actually to, you know, according to the pro-Russian source, the attempt is actually to conduct a strike in the Bruskynske and Kostyantynivka area to actually take over the road, so that they can break the communication channels between Davydiv Brid and the rear of the Russian position. So after that, we have a reported attack, you know, attempted assault towards Bruskynske. So there, as of 4:30 in the afternoon on the 13th of September, there's units of the Ukrainian forces making an attempt in the direction of Bruskynskoye, which is Bruskynske. And but again, as a result of massive fire impact from artillery and MLRS, so they got spotted by the Russian forces, and a massive artillery strike was hit on them. And not on top of that, there was also Russian Air Force airstrike, and the Ukrainian forces suffered losses, and again they actually retreated. So as they retreat, they were given cover fire by artillery, so it's not that bad. And there is two artillery of the Ukrainian side was destroyed 4 kilometers east of Bruskynske. Two of the Hyacinth B was destroyed around here, so it's probably part of the same offensive. There is also a demining operation being reported 1 kilometer south of Avdiivka, which is here around this position. Perhaps it's actually to open up more grounds or more possibilities for them to launch offensive. So the situation here at the Davydiv Brid Front remains unchanged, because the Ukrainian attempts to change the front line has not been successful. So is the Russian attempt at Bezimenne. Similarly did not yield results. Over at the Davydiv Brid Front, there is reinforcement reported at Vysokopilia. It seems like there was 14 units of equipment, including tanks, and probably is actually to reinforce the line around here, as the Russians are still in the vicinity. The Russians are still in the southern outskirts or southern part of Vysokopilia. Fighting is reported at Arkhanhelske, according to Deep State UA, which is a pro-Ukrainian source. So they say that they currently still unable to knock out the Russian small force at Arkhanhelske. So the Russian side have a relatively small force around here, but the Ukrainians have not been able to eject them. There is a Ukrainian entrenchment in this position, around 3.5 kilometers, I think. Yeah, 3 kilometers northwest of Novohryhorivka. So so the entrenched position is actually to act as a forward position, as they are planning to launch an attack against Novohryhorivka. Should this attack be successful, the Russian forces at Odradivka and Vysokopilia will be encircled. So this is probably the Ukrainians trying to do something. So this is the situation here at the Kryvyi front. So the southern front, the Great Kherson Super Duper Uber offensive is still ongoing, but it's no longer Super Duper Uber. It's just a Great Kherson offensive. It's still great in my opinion, because all three fronts are still continue to have actions. The Ukrainians continue to bring in forces, and they continue to sustain their offensive against the Russian positions. So the Kherson offensive is actually still ongoing, as far as DPA's analysis is concerned. So moving on to the Zaporizhzhia line. At the Zaporizhzhia line, the Ukrainians continue to gather forces in the Orikhiv region, particularly at Orikhiv, where more columns of equipment, and there is also resupply of fuel and lubricant arrive at Orikhiv, and there's also more forces arriving at Omelnik. At Omelnik, the forces here that was transferred to this position is actually from the Territorial Defense Brigade, and also for artillery units. So it looks like this force on the rear of Orikhiv is the reserve force, and probably this looks like a real attempt, real preparation for an offensive, because you need a reserve force behind you, and the Ukrainians have been using the Territorial Defense Forces as reserve force to reinforce the frontline units, which are the more well-trained regular troops. And this is what they did in the Kharkiv area in the Mykolaiv Front. So there is a HIMARS being spotted, reported in the vicinity of Kayamske. So they say at least one Ukrainian HIMARS launcher is located in the vicinity of Kayamske. So this looks like a very forward position. The day before, there is a massive offensive by the Ukrainians towards Vasilivka. This fighting is not reported today, which means that the offensive towards Vasilivka has failed, and it just happened that there is a HIMARS supporting the offensive probably yesterday. So this offensive has not worked out in the Ukrainians' favor. There is fighting reported between Dorozyanka and Kostyantynivka. So there is at the border between Dorozyanka and Kostyantynivka. So the Ukrainian forces, separate assault groups, conducted recon by combat against the Russian stronghold. So they actually sent some recon troops forward. They're trying to spot where are the Russian entrenchments, so that they can probably call in artillery strike on this defensive position. So that's all from the Zaporizhzhia line. Moving on to the Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, forces continue to concentrate on Voleda, as the Ukrainian forces trying to prepare for an offensive from the Voleda position. At this moment, the front line look like the Russian line. This line is the correct front line. The Ukrainian line, based on all the artillery shelling reports, from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry seems to be inaccurate. As you can see, that all these claims are based on the shelling reports that they have reported. It looks like it's not accurate. The Russian line seems to be more accurate, because there is a photo or video of the fighting near Voleda coming out on the pro-Russian side. The pro-Russian sources are showing the video or the photos. I didn't really go and look at it. I think it's video. And the concentration of forces continues. And according to the pro-Russian source Ryba, from the 9th to the 10th of September, so it is not including the reinforcement coming on the 11th and 12th, in the reinforcement on that 2 days amounts up to 2,000 troops. So if we continue to add in reinforcement for 11 and 12, we might actually see the forces bloating up to maybe even 4,000 troops. Maybe that is possible. And this looks like a massive offensive being planned in the Voleda region. So let's see whether the Ukrainians will be able to launch this offensive before their forces get wiped out by Russian artillery. There is fighting reported at Krasnohorivka, and so this is reported by War Gonzo, the pro-Russian media. And on the Pisky region, in the northwestern part of Donetsk city, the Russian forces have captured the western part of the Donetsk Airport. So previously, this area was controlled by the Ukrainians through the position of some fortified positions. It was already overrun by Russian troops. The Ukrainians attempted to launch a counteroffensive to recapture these positions. However, the force of 50 soldiers supported by light armored vehicles was wiped out by artillery and mortar forces. So not wiped out, but they got defeated and then they retreated. So this is already probably, I think, the third time I say this, where the Ukrainians launched an offensive, but because of heavy artillery, they were forced to retreat. And this seems to be the trend for today's summary, where the Ukrainian forces just cannot get a clean engagement against the Russian forces. They probably didn't even see any Russian soldiers, and then they got bombarded back to their original position. There is fighting reported at Vodyane, according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry. There is also reinforcement reported near Pisky from the pro-Russian sources Ryba, as the reinforcement to the 79th Brigade of the Ukrainian side. Several mortar crews were sent to the Mykolaiv sector, and servicemen of the 42nd Battalion of the 57th Brigade arrived in the Pisok, which is the Pisky direction. So there is reinforcement coming to this position, probably to hold back the Russian offensive. So far, there is no reports of fighting at Posad-Pokrovske, I think, today, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so yeah, you see, this is today's report. There is no fighting reported at Posad-Pokrovske. So there is reported, however, of fighting at Avdiivka. See Avdiivka here. However, it wasn't clear where is the offensive being fought. So that's it from this side, and that's it from the Donetsk Front. Moving on to the Bakhmut Front. At the Bakhmut Front, the most southern point, there is fighting reported at Mayorsk. Mayorsk is previously captured, reportedly captured by the Russian forces. However, it looks like the captured area might not be very big, as the Ukrainians continue to report shelling and fighting at Mayorsk. And most significant development at the Bakhmut Front is the capture of Mykolaivka and Mykolaivka Druha by the Russian forces, reportedly by Wagner PMC detachment with the private military contractors. They have captured this position, and of significance with the capture of Mykolaivka Druha, they actually cut the road, and this highway is no longer usable now because of the Russian position in this area. Fighting continues at Odradivka and at Zaitseve. At Zaitseve, the fighting is now on the west side of the settlement, so it looks like it's not going to be very far before the Russian side will declare a capture of Zaitseve at this rate. For Vesela Dolyna, more information has came out that the fighting is actually around this Donbaska electrical substation. So there is this substation around here, and the Ukrainian forces is currently holding a defense in this area. They are currently getting more and more surrounded by the Russian forces on the east and the northeast side. So they are currently, the Russian forces currently around here, but it looks like they will slowly get encircled. Currently they are not, maybe because the Ukrainian forces is actually holding out in this forested area, which the Ukrainian forces really love. They really love to hide in the forest area, which gave the Russian forces a lot of problem. So we will continue to monitor and see how far this Vesela Dolyna situation goes on. There is no real reported fighting at Bakhmut, but it is conceivable that there is at least some kind of firefight in that region. There is fighting reported at Soledar. According to the pro-Russian source Ryba, they said that the unit of the 7th Brigade of the Donetsk militia occupied the first quarter of in the north of Soledar. Now they run along the Kosmonaftov Street. Actually, it's a Cosmonaut Street. But however, I cannot find the street. I also don't know where is it. So, because the name was all changed by the Ukrainian side, so it's very hard to find the road names, and I don't think it's very important at this moment. We will continue to monitor, and we will see how this goes. And that's all from the Bakhmut front. Over at the Siversk front, the Ukrainian Siversk offensive towards Lysychansk has kind of bogged down by the Russian defenses. Instead of the offensive at Sperne, it was actually counter-attacked by the Russian forces, and reportedly, according to the pro-Russian source Ryba, the Russian forces managed to wipe out a checkpoint at the entrance of the village at Sperne. So instead of a Ukrainian offensive, we actually got a Russian counter-offensive. Fighting continues at Sperne, and the Ukrainians attempted another attack towards Novohryhorivka. So however, this offensive still did not work out. So the entire Siversk offensive that started off so excitingly, where there is fighting at Zaporizhzhia, at Verkhneyamka, at Sperne, has entirely dissolved, and it probably won't be long before the Ukrainian forces will give up this offensive, by the look of it. Moving on to the Slovyansk Front. At the Slovyansk Front, the entire Lyman offensive has been neutralized. It looks like because there is no reported fighting at Lyman now. According to pro-Russian sources, they say that the line, the defenses is now stable now. The line at Lyman is stable, which means that the lemon continue to be very crispy, and the crispy lemon will stay crispy where this blue tide is not going to make it soft. And it depends. We will continue to monitor and see whether the Ukrainians will try again against Lyman. Seems to be quite demoralizing, I guess, for the Ukrainian forces, because they had really so much success in the Kharkiv region here. They probably thought that they are on the roll, and Lyman is such a attractive lemon to fry, and the forces that was defending here is really sparse. It's not really that much, and the Ukrainians sent such a big force. Two BTGs wolf with a company of tanks, and are still unable to take Lyman. And because this is just so close, once they take Lyman, the entire rear will be all open, and they can actually have another massive rout of Russian forces. However, this did not happen. Perhaps the Russians actually managed to pull enough reinforcement to Lyman area to defend this position. So we will see whether the Russians will be able to push the Ukrainians back to the other side of the river, because ultimately still the Ukrainians are holding Stary Karavan, Bruskynske, and Odradivka at this moment. So this is actually not very comfortable for the Russian side. should they not hold these positions. On the other side of the Slovyansk Front, there is no update. Sorry, at the Svatohorsk region, there is still fighting in this region. However, it was not very reported today. All that was reported about Svatohorsk was that situation is difficult. That's it. So situation is difficult. So maybe they got given algebra questions. Sometimes maybe Pythagoras theorem. Things that I already forget how to do. So maybe it's the maths question is really difficult. So they are struggling. Molecular science is actually not so easy to solve the question. Perhaps they will fail their exam. Over here at the what I now call the Oskil Front. This is the Ukrainian Khaki force. This is the Oskil Front now. I now calling this the Oskil Front along the entire Oskil River. At the Oskil Front, there is no attacks, or no fighting reported. The Ukrainians, after capturing such a big territory, they are currently busy redeploying their troops. So there is forces. There's a Ukrainian convoy of 5 tanks and 2 IFV-3 trucks reported at Pervomaisky, moving southward, reportedly towards the Donbas region. So they are actually moving forces from Kharkiv to Donbas, perhaps. So this force is actually moving south. However, there is also more forces arriving towards the Oskil Front, where there is reinforcement of artillery at Novohryhorivka, and also no other military equipment arriving at Balaklia. Sorry, Novohryhorivka and Balaklia are the military equipments. The artillery is arriving at Kudo-Yarove as well as Teyanivka. So these are the artilleries moving here. There is other probably heavy equipments moving here. So it remains to be seen where the Ukrainians will try to attack on the Oskil Front. The entire area here is covered by Russian artillery. So any movement around here or gathering of troops will be highly risky. But we shall see, because the Ukrainian forces are a brave bunch, so they will do whatever they can to actually break the Russian defense if they can. So if they cannot, then they are still brave. So that's all from the Oskil Front. So this is the summary of the day of 202 for the 13th of September, and so do check out the other channels, the other DPA channels, and do subscribe to this channel if you are not subscribed. If you haven't pressed the like button, please help to press the like button. And also there is Discord channel, Telegram channel, do check it out. And yeah, and that's all for the summary, and I'll see you in the next update.